That's not turned on, is it? Huge. No, I'm not happy on it.
The base right, the base right.
No, it's shot down.
Hum.
Yeah. Close your eyes.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Someone's ready.
Yeah.
I'm not really ready. I'm not ready. I'm going to say that we're trying to conduct a lesson in this room. I don't expect my students to talk when I'm teaching.
He's very scruffy about that.
You know, they all let you
He
do
doesn't like it, does he? It's really nasty to do that. You know,
Shall I do the timing by this? Yeah. I'm actually going through seeing how you balance it anyway. So, you know, how many minutes you give to.
Shall I give him the...
Well, if you can't do it tonight, then you can concentrate completely on what you, because otherwise it's a distraction. Yeah, because I note down things like, you know, at 10:05 he moves on to. When you're ready, it's in your time. I'm ready when you are.
Go away. No, it's not.
Oh, they're just checking.
Is it actually running?
It's Ray's son checking before.
Dear.
You're on
It's
camera.
started. Can I rub this bit off?
I shot you head back in the picture.
Okay, let's start. Good morning, students. My name is Jack Lunn, and I'd like to spend the next few minutes of your very valuable time exploring a subject that I've called the spinning ball. I intend to split this up into two distinct areas. Firstly, what effect does spin have on the flight of the ball? And what I mean by that is, if a ball is spinning, does it in fact affect the movement of the ball through the air? And secondly, hopefully if time permits, what causes a ball to spin? I tried to rub at the top of that eye off, but it wouldn't come on. So what causes the ball to spin in the first place? Now, to ease ourselves into this discussion, or exploration, investigation, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to start with a short demonstration of a ball, and we're going to try and decide what happens to a ball as it hits the ground, depending upon whether or not it's spinning. So what I intend to do is just let this ball go, and it'll hit the ground somewhere down there, and I want you to notice, perhaps take some notes as to what in fact happens when it hits the floor. So I'm just going to give it a bit of height, let it drop on the floor, and you watch what happens. Just hit the ball and just move a couple of feet forward. Now what I'm hoping to do is to give it the same line of flight out of my hands and hit the ground in approximately the same spot. But this time I'm going to put a bit of spin on the ball. You see I'm turning it round, and actually the ball is spinning towards the direction it's going. So this is what they call top spin. Now hopefully I'll be able to get the same line of flight, or a similar line, if you would. And you probably guessed the next one. The third demonstration is the ball's going to have what we call backspin on it. And in fact it didn't go forward at all, it came back, and obviously dependent upon the amount of spin on the ball, it's going to come back quite a lot further. Okay? So you did notice a difference there, hopefully.
Yes.
Another way I could demonstrate what I'm talking about with a spinning ball is if I could have brought a snooker table in here, but we probably wouldn't have got any work done. So we're going to have to do one of these horrible little overhead projector type things. If you bear with me for a minute. This is a snooker table, and this is what's known as the object ball. This is the cue ball, the ball that we're actually going to strike with our cue, and it will hopefully go towards the object ball. Now, try it down this way perhaps. Hold on. There we are. Now if I were to hit that ball with the snooker cue in the middle, then theoretically, let's do it this way, it would travel towards this ball, and some of the momentum or the velocity that the cue ball has is transferred to the object ball, and the object ball will move in a particular direction, and the cue ball will consequently slow down. Now if I were to hit this ball not in the middle, but on the top, I think you'll appreciate that it will in fact start spinning in that direction. And as it hits the object ball will move out of the way, and the cue ball will still have some of this momentum left. It will in fact continue in that direction, but a lot further than it had no spin. And I'm sure you've all seen, you've probably experienced yourself what would happen if you were to hit a cue ball on the bottom, in fact put backspin on the ball. When it actually hits that ball, this ball would come backwards. You've probably seen this on television, haven't you? Or you've probably done it yourself, where you put a bit of bottom or stun or screw on a cue ball and it actually spins back. Right, so it seems that it's fairly obvious that if a ball is spinning, when it comes into contact with a surface, it reacts differently. A, depending on whether in fact it is spinning, and B, which way it's spinning. But what might be less obvious to you is the fact that a ball that's spinning will in fact move or deviate from its original line of flight before it comes into contact with a surface. Now you don't need to take my word for it, you've probably seen those amongst you who watch football on television, for instance, you've probably seen a ball going in a sort of a curve shape, a bend. Let's say, for instance, a football match where a free kick's being awarded, and the ball's laid on the ground, and there's an obstruction between the ball and the goalposts. The wall of defence down up there, and there's in fact. Let me try and get it from the ball. We've got the ball here, and we've got the goal here, and what happens is that there's an obstruction, a wall of defenders that stand there like that protecting themselves. And in fact, there's no way that that ball can get, unless it goes over the top, which we'll discard or ignore for the time being, there's no way that that ball can get to the goal unless it goes around the wall of defenders. And this is indeed what happens. The ball is hit initially in that line, but it actually curves off away from that line and hopefully goes towards the goal. Okay, so why does this ball move in the air? It's obviously because it's spinning. And this is something that I want to investigate a little bit further with you, provided I've got enough time. Any questions so far? Well, let's think about why a ball spins. Perhaps one way of approaching this problem or subject is to try to think about what's happening to that ball as it goes through the air. What forces are having an effect on that ball? Well, for instance, if you were to kick a ball up, eventually it's going to come down. So there's one force, gravity, that's acting upon that ball. But there's also several other forces, and I think we can disregard, so that we don't get too confused, a wind factor for the time being. But also there's another force. The air pressure through which this ball is travelling is having an effect on that ball. It's having the effect of slowing it down, is that right? This is pretty easy to explain when you think about if you were to kick a ball in a direction with a certain amount of force on a football pitch, and then you did the same thing inside a vacuum, what would happen? Well, theoretically it would go on forever. Obviously, I imagine gravity would have some effect on it eventually, but it would go a lot further. You agree with that? So therefore, if we're kicking a ball...
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry? Yeah?
So it's got no resistance.
That's right. There's no... Well, theoretically, in a vacuum, there is no air, so there should be no air pressure. I mean, I don't know in fact whether this is true. It might be the case that there is zero air pressure. I mean, we probably need a physicist to explain this to us. Perhaps if we had Mr. Newton with us, a good mate of mine, Isaac. But he couldn't be present today for a number of reasons, not the least of which is he's dead. He could probably explain this perhaps a bit better than I can. So as a ball moves through the air, then there is air pressure having an effect on that ball. The passage of air that the ball is moving through is being affected by the air through which it's moving. So this is perhaps important point number one. To discuss point number two, I'd like to, if you could, just to bear with me for a minute and consider a situation where a ball is rolling down a slight gradient. Now I think it's important to mention that the ball is rolling. It's not skidding or spinning or sliding, it's actually rolling. And it's rolling down a flat, slight incline of a road or a pavement or something. And let's assume that it's moving at a constant speed of 10 miles an hour. Now consider, if you will, a molecule inside the very centre of that ball. What speed is that molecule doing? If the ball is moving miles an hour, then the molecule inside the ball, in the very centre of the ball, is also moving. Surely it must be moving at 10 miles an hour.
There's no rotation.
But it's actually moving, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes?
If it's going down, it would have to be accelerating, wouldn't
No, we're assuming that we're going to keep a constant speed, however we're going to do this, just to try and keep it as simple as we can. So a molecule in the centre of the ball, is that all right, Alex?
Yeah.
You can live with that, yeah?
It's maintaining the same speed as the ball itself.
Do you mind? I'm not going to pass them out, they've got enough.
You've had 9, so you've got 3 more minutes. So.
Oh, Lewis.
9.
Okay, so this molecule in the centre of the ball is moving at the same speed as the ball, 10 miles an hour. Now consider, if you will, a molecule on the outside of the ball. It touches the ground and it comes up behind the ball, it gets to the top of the ball, then the front and touches the ground again. What speed is that molecule doing for the fraction of a second when it actually touches the ground? Anybody? It's slowing up. You reckon it stopped? Well, actually, it stopped just for a fraction of a second. If you think the ground's not moving, the ground is static, it's stationary, and if this molecule, as it touches the ground, is in fact moving, then it must be skidding across the ground, mustn't it? Sliding, if it's actually moving. Yes? So therefore, it must have stopped. And this is an amazing concept to agree with. I mean, we could probably debate an hour on this, but the fact is that if that molecule doesn't slide across the ground as it goes across the ground, then therefore it cannot be moving. It must have stopped just for that fraction of a second. And consequently, if you can agree with that, when it gets to the top of the ball, it's probably got to do twice as much work so that it can have a rest when it gets down the bottom again. So it would probably be a fair assumption to say that when the molecule does in fact get onto the top of the ball, it's travelling twice as fast as the actual ball is. You happy with that? Okay, so we've got two conclusions from what I've been discussing with you so far. Firstly, a ball is affected by the pressure of the air through which it passes. And secondly, a molecule on the side of that ball is actually travelling at varying speeds. Now this is why let me try and do this in a bit, make it a bit bigger for you. This is the situation here. This is the ball. There's the wall of defenders protecting the crown jewels, and there's the goal. And we're trying to curve this ball or bend this ball around the wall. Now, in order for a ball to turn to the right from its original line of flight, that ball needs to be rotating in a clockwise direction if you were looking from above it. Okay? So the ball originally starts out with that line, as is this one here, but it actually moves around in that direction. And it's actually spinning in a clockwise direction. Now, if you bear with me for a minute, if the molecule that we were discussing earlier is on the front of the ball, then it's having, then it's having a particular effect on the ball. When this molecule gets around this side of the ball, it's theoretically stopped under certain circumstances. And that is that the ball is spinning at 10 miles an hour and the ball is moving forward at 10 miles an hour because of what we said about the inclination, the incline, the ball rolling down straight off. So actually when this molecule gets around there, it stops. When it gets around this side, it's got twice as much work to do. Now there's a famous saying, and I don't know who said it, but it goes something like, an object will always take the line of least resistance. And there's a lot less resistance on that side of the ball. In fact, at that given fraction of a second, it's not moving at all. The molecule on that side of the ball, provided the ball is moving at 10 miles an hour and it's spinning at 10 miles an hour, there's no resistance there whatsoever. This is why the ball will spin out to the right. Now I was hoping to talk about how the spin gets there, but obviously I've run out of time. So are any questions on what I've managed to cover so far? No? Okay, here ended the lesson. We'll talk about how to get out of bunkers next week. Good. I made it all up.
Not is it?
I don't know. It seems to make sense to me. It might be
I'm
true.
really concentrated on that.
No, I mean, in all honesty, I don't know in fact if that is true, but it seems to make a bit of common sense to me, so maybe it is.
Did you read it or?
No.
You speak about there are a bit sort of...
Pardon?
There's a few bits.
No, in all seriousness, it's very difficult to appreciate the concept that if the ball is moving, that there is a part of that ball that's actually stationary.
Yeah.
But I think the demonstration of the ball rolling down the hill does in fact prove that where the ball is touching the ground, it's actually stationary, but it's set
That
back.
I agree with, but I think the spin imparts an energy that the ball wouldn't previously have.
Yeah, well, that's true. Isaac wasn't here to help you, son.
But he's not, I mean, he's definitely now.
Is he?
Yeah, so.
Well, this shows how much I know about
Italian
Italian.
cities.
Anyway, we won't discuss the content anymore. No, right, thank you.
Nice, nice point.
Cheers, man. You go.
Actually, I really like the pen on the screen, because I said to Dennis, it actually looked like you
It looked like a
It looked like a pen.
Do you really?
Making it take a full moment.
Split second.
Ready for it to draw back and have a poke.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That was my first point actually. It was very effective the use of the OHP in that way. And also the way
Can I smoke?
the way the
No,
OHP was
you can do a little bit of tea. Sorry, Chris, right, carry on.
the way the OHP was used to actually introduce the lecture as well. I thought that gave a good beginning,
Yeah.
and it had a good beginning, middle, and end.
I didn't get to see the best one. I mean, we were going to get on to golf in a minute,
Oh,
but we ran out of time.
It's a good job we ran out of time to
We could have been here all day.
Yeah. Yes, sorry, carry on.
And as you said, the use of the pen was like a snippy cue. That was just very, very effective.
Yeah.
Use of the OHP. The second point was the demonstration with the football.
Yeah, the demonstration was good.
Yeah, I thought that was probably one of the most effective parts of the lecture because it was very, very clear, and the actions and the words, the way you actually spoke about what you're doing, were very linked, and it was sort of like anyone could understand it. You know, it was good for the layman. as you were explaining
I
what
think that's a
you're
good
doing.
learning point actually. It seems ridiculous, but to bring in something like football doesn't take long. Sometimes to take something into a lesson and just show them a real thing, and a couple of minutes demonstration can be worth 100 OHPs and words. You know, bring in football, bring in the golf cue, bring in whatever it is you're talking about, and just show them.
Golf cue?
Golf club. I don't know. Some of us don't have time to waste on golf. But you know what I mean? Bring the thing in. I think that's because it sticks in your mind. You know, that will stick in my mind, the spinning of the ball and the releasing it and the talking over it. So I think that's another good point. Yeah, sorry.
The last point was that although we were actually acting very nervous at the start, we came across as being very confident.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, it's very confident, not very confident.
That's excellent.
And I still like that now.
Well, I was like to say the same thing. I think you showed a lot of authority, and that's what made it convincing.
Because I didn't know what I was talking about.
It sounded very convincing. The only negative thing I'd like to just say, and it was just something which came up in my criticism, that there was a little bit of gratuitous humour. There was, a bit about nothing new because you've been dead for a while. But I think, we all knew that, and most people do. So I think I'm probably.
Yeah, fine.
I know what happens as you're using it to think.
Exactly.
I think you also use it as it's nerves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw that in so I can remember what I've got to say
That's
next.
right, yeah.
Most of us resort to humour when we're nervous. It's just like nervous laughter, isn't it? I mean, again, you see, different people like different things. I mean, too much humour in a session like this can distract, but humour, I think, in general is very important because it also helps reinforce things in the memory. If you can link things with sort of humorous situations or link them with things that students, because there are very few things that actually reinforce in the memory, and taking the, with equal opportunities as an aim to rather not keep using sexual examples, because these are obviously, as we all know, that sexual things do also help memory links, but many of them are rather dated and rather offensive and defensive, yes. So any other links that we can find are, and humour is a good one. long as it doesn't distract, as Dennis said, you know, too much of it.
Well, one thing I noticed when I was actually in lecture, for example, that and his presentation summed up visual images of things happening.
Yes.
Experience.
I saw
experiences.
I saw,
Yes.
as he was describing the action of the balls in various situations, I was actually visualising the situation. The birds might work in the way or Jackson.
Well, no, I think it's the way the person cues in, isn't it? So when
I
cueing
think-
in, it is. Some people can paint pictures
Yeah.
and I was visualising as well, actually.
I've got very clear pictures of what he was describing.
Well, it's good because what he did was he embedded the theory into actual practical situations, which is a good, you know, makes some more sense. It becomes real for the person. Whereas if it was just purely theory, it would be, you know, it wouldn't be.
There is a really key learning point which actually transcends micro teaching and goes on to the whole of learning. You know, that if you can link theory into practice with students, then immediately you've made the right links. You know, and it will pay not only memory but understanding. Then we can go into real depth because theory without practice or theory removed from practice is often a waste of time. You know, I mean, it's obviously something we do on 7-3 home, but it's something you are doing, I'm sure, in the classroom. It's certainly something you would do in a workshop. You know, like input theory. If a student is doing something, actually input the theory there and then. This is why questions are so important. You know, asking your learners the why quite often, because you're then getting them to think through the theory while they're doing practice, and it can be true of any subject. There is no subject that's not true of. Yeah. I mean, all the subjects have some practical application. All of them. People say things like pure mathematics don't, they do. In fact. But all subjects link theory to practice. And that is done by using the words to paint pictures as well. By using them to build up. I mean, visual aids are only one part of the story. Words are also useful to build up. So I like that. When you ask a question, again, I know I'm saying the same thing, but this is a general learning point. Use one name if you've got limited time. Yeah? So, Brian, what do you think? Or Gail, you know. And if you're going to incorporate a question, make sure that it is a question. What you're doing in micro teaching is, we're pressed for time. You know, I mean, I was rushing Jack and saying 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
It's interesting actually because when I was talking about a ball being kicked up, eventually it's going to come down to ground. I was thinking about asking people what's the force that's going to bring it back to ground, but I thought that was a bit too basic, a bit too patronising.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to say, I can't be bothered.
No,
Well, obviously gravity brings it back. I mean,
yeah,
it's too obvious.
necessarily everybody knows what gravity's doing.
I don't think it's
Well,
not necessary.
the one
Everyone
point I
knows what
would have
gravity is.
said, was the language you're actually using was particularly engineering type thing, yeah. I mean, velocity, movement,
Yes, I've got that down. You use the
stun,
word
screw.
velocity there.
I mean, how many people know what stun is and what screw is, unless
Yes.
you play pool
Yeah,
or
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
sport, cinema.
So avoid the jargon, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure it was.
I mean, it's done naturally because you know it. I know what it is. I play pool twice a week. So if you play pool twice a week, you're going to swim or Snoopy, you're going to find out what screw and stun is. You have to use it. But if you don't ever do it, and not in that circumstance, then nobody's going to know what it means.
It's amazing how many of us use words in the classroom assuming that our learners understand those words and don't pick them up. This is why I think, careful reading through handouts with learners. I get people quite often to underline words they don't understand. It's very important. We use words that people don't understand. And if they don't understand and they're too embarrassed to ask, then they will be lost much more easily than if you take time. Yes, velocity I noted down. I have played pool frequently, but screw and stun were other words that I would have thought, And it is, what you could do for a micro teacher is maybe send a sheet round with the words on. But I mean, in a general classroom
What would you
sense.
put on a screw though?
Yes, well, we have a different interpretation. I think that you do draw a lot from micro teaching here because we can't use words in an everyday sense. But I'll always try and use a simple word next to it. Maybe not always, because I also make mistakes. But I'll try to use it side by side, and you get more used to the words. If you do that, words in handouts people don't understand, you know. Words in questions. So A, if you're going to ask a question, make sure it is a question. Leave time for people to respond to it. And B, make sure the jargon is explained. Good learning. There's about 15 in each session. When you get there, we can spend it, we have one micro teaching, spend the rest of the day analysing it. Really. Because the deeper you go, the more there is to say.
Also noted down as well, I spoke that done so far, it's a time period. I mean, it's a short period of time to do it.
But that's
Very
I know I'm gonna have
deliberate,
problems.
isn't it?
Yes, deliberate. You know, I mean, Jack, Jack, that's over there, he obviously had a lot to say, and he went in, he dived in after 20 seconds, his introduction was. Because he's so eager, and this is most people who know this, he's so eager to get in, get the subject done, whereas in a classroom, you know, he would take a little bit longer to introduce.
Is that a fault? Diving in or is it? Because when we jacked it, I mean...
In the micro teaching, I wouldn't really penalise it. He went in with great enthusiasm. In the classroom in general, yeah, I would give it a bit of a warm-up. But for this, I
It
would...
gives a lovely warm-up.
So if you give it a warm-up, you can take 5-10 minutes on the warm-up.
Yeah.
Yes. But if you've got a 2-hour lesson, then surely that's justifiable. Because the attention span of students is only about 20 minutes.
So actually diving in here doesn't really...
Yeah, because this is really, I mean, this is condensed. It's like taking
2 hours.
2 hours,
10 minutes.
so you know, your introduction is about.
Yeah, actually, I felt when I got into that, I mean, I was still a bit nervous even when it finished, but once I got into it, I thought, well, if I had the opportunity now of slowing this down at the pace I really wanted to deliver it, I could probably have stood up there for 2 hours. Probably.
Exactly.
I mean, you could have gone in deep, really.
Yeah.
But
This is a lesson to us all for timing, as I say, because it's amazing how much longer it takes to actually deliver anything in class than you ever think. You write out your lesson plans for the whole year. You see, I have to do it for Sem 3.0. It's a nightmare. Because just as we're getting into a subject, the whole of Sem 3.0, people say, oh, God, we're not moving off that already. And this is a lesson you're going to learn when you start trying to organise your time. You've got to do it, because a lot of you will have syllabus to cover, a course pattern, an area. So time organisation, I think, is the most difficult thing in teaching. And you have got to be ruthless on, you know, with your learners. Because sometimes they'll be genuinely interested, but it will be you, with this overview of the whole syllabus, who will have to move them on, despite the interest. You know.
Incidentally, something I said there, I didn't invent it, I'm sure. I heard somebody else say that.
What?
That an object will always take the line of least resistance.
Yes,
Is that a famous physicist or something?
Certainly not the way it applies to children.
I haven't heard any object, but I've
What
heard
will be through?
You know, actually, with enough time, I could have
Yeah.
spent 5 or 10 minutes just on that sentence.
I mean,
Because it's something that we're probably all guilty of as human, well, if guilty is the right word, as human beings. And I mean, this is really another lecture on its own, isn't it?
Thank you, Irene. Thank you.